Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for coming.
The invited guests indicated at the start that they were in Washington because they were serious about South Africa and its future, as the discussion quickly veered into the question of land and reform around ownership.
Land reform is all about getting more equal occupation. Actually, land reform should be about creating a class of profitable black farmers. But it's not happened over the last 30 years. And a lot of the tension about land can be boiled down to that. You see, in land reform, it is very seldom that title deed is given to the beneficiaries. So these farmers who are beneficiaries of land reform, they are delivered to the state. They are tenants of the state. And they cannot give their land as collateral to access financing for production.
Jager also sought to challenge the narrative that farm murders were not of particular significance within the broader crime context in South Africa.
In other murders, like violence on women and children, like the gangsters on the Cape Flats, no one calls for those murders. Like there's the scene, kill a farmer, kill a boer. And when it happens, it's not with the same brutality. You do not have the same torturing all night long before somebody is actually killed.
Further arguing that BEE, while formulated to address the huge disparities left by apartheid, was in fact harming the economy through the systematic persecution of a particular type of person, the white male.
That type of person in South Africa has no employment rights. They cannot be employed above a certain level. There's a ceiling for them, but they don't have to be employed. So they are put at a serious disadvantage. If that white male is living wherever, is forced to leave wherever he's working, and he starts a business, he'll run into the second phase of the problem. If his business grows, he will have to black empower that business. In other words, if you want to do business with the state, or perhaps with a big business that wants to comply with BEE, you'll have to give away 51% of your business. So you can't find a job and you can't own your own business. That's a very simplified approach towards this whole scheme. And that is the reason of the decline in South Africa, is this policy, which they call black economic empowerment and employment equity. That is the reason for the economic decline of South Africa.
South Africa's land policy is primarily driven by the need to address historical injustices of land dispossession and the 1913 Natives Land Act that severely limited black ownership, a redress that has been uneven since the dawn of democracy. Pushing back against BEE criticism, President Cyril Ramaphosa told Parliament in May that it was racist policies of old that prevented all South Africans from playing a meaningful role in the economy, and that a democratic South Africa was broadening black economic participation. This was the country's top diplomat in Washington this May.
There is no law in South Africa that is specifically persecuting or targeting white Afrikaners, but there is a constitutional imperative that is there for transformation in the country, which is in the interest of the whole nation, for nation building. That is a constitutional imperative that is in the preamble, that is in the various laws of our country, which we have to ensure that we continue to persuade, to pursue, and to make sure that that imperative becomes a reality.
All benefit by that.
The leader of the Freedom Front Plus thanked the Trump administration for reaching out to the Afrikaner community, but said he would love to see Afrikaners remain in South Africa and make a success of the country.
We are part of the government of national unity, but there are two huge problems. One, as I've mentioned with regard to the economic policy, what chance is there to create job creation, to get economic growth, if the point of departure remains these outdated policies, with no certainty with regard to private property ownership? Not only land, all private property can be expropriated without compensation. That's law in South Africa now. It can be implemented. The second problem we have is international relations remain the exclusive domain of the ANC. That's why South Africa has positioned ourselves vis-à-vis Israel, vis-à-vis Iran, and you can mention all those things. That remains a huge challenge. So we would like to see how do we go forward, that kind of deal that we would like to put on the table. The first will deal with economics. The second one, we should look at the geopolitical position of South Africa.
The presidency has long clarified that the expropriation law was not a confiscation instrument but a constitutionally mandated legal process subject to the courts and due process that ensured public access to land in an equitable and just manner guided by the Constitution, while the presidency was ultimately responsible for the country's foreign policy and international relations. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.